Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. Welcome back to the Spider-Man Retrospective, where we're talking about Kraven the Hunter. Yes, one of my favorite villains. Anti-hero, really. As I said before, he's more of an anti-hero than a villain, especially on this show. And which is why I think it would work for him to have his own movie. But then we got the movie. I don't think it's terrible, but it's certainly not what you could think. I just think people are like, oh, it needs to have Spider-Man in it to be good, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. Kraven could have his own movie. You know, a cameo wouldn't have hurt. But yeah. So this episode starts right away with we see that someone is attacking this woman in her office. We don't know these characters. Well, we can recognize, Miss Kraven, but we don't know. But apparently, Peter Parker is going to apply for a job with Dr. Mariah Crawford. Well, he says if he gets the job, he'll finally get a chance to work in her real lab. Does Dr. Connor's lab not count? Okay. But he arrives in the middle of this lover spat, so to speak. He's going after her. Kraven accuses her of being with another man, and the fight leads them to Spider-Man showing up and fighting him off, but he's very strong. And the fight on the roof ends with the disappearance of Kraven. He's gone, and we get the explanation. Dr. Mariah Crawford says that she was in the jungle in Africa looking for a colleague of hers named Dr. Reeves, and with her was Sergei Kravinoff, who's Russian here, and voiced by Greg Berger, who also voices Mysterio. I thought his voice sounded familiar. It's not modulated, so it sounds better. But they were in the jungle together, and they fell in love during that, and they end up eventually finding her colleague, Reeves, who now looks like a redhead Tarzan, and says he created this serum, and it, from what I can gather, it modifies your animal instincts. It makes you stronger, faster, more agile, that sort of thing. And it also causes the animal instincts to control you, make you more animalistic and rageified and all that. And so he gives her the only other sample left and says, don't ever use that on anyone. Don't take it. Yeah. But Sergei has to fight off attack from some hyenas. I think they're hyenas. And he is gravely wounded, so she has to use the serum. No. Here, she just pours it on his chest, and he's healed. Note that for later. But it changed him. He became more animalistic, and he started calling himself Kraven, and he became the big guy, and yeah, this big hunter guy. And it wasn't the man that she fell in love with, so she returned to the States to try to find a cure. But now he's followed her and thinks that she's with another man. Meanwhile, Spider-Man tries to tap some help from Robbie Robertson by giving him this paper with something on it. But Kraven sniffs him down, and accuses Robbie of being the other man in the affair. And he's so very confused. Meanwhile, we see that Peter's love life is starting to boil over. Yes, because Mary Jane has invited him, well, supposed to be for Aunt May, but invited him to this fashion show. Ironically, it is the jungle fashion show where Mary Jane's dressed like a jungle girl. And wouldn't you know it, also there is Felicia Hardy, because her mom's company, the Hardy Foundation, is sponsoring this thing. So he's already promised Mary Jane to go out to dinner afterwards, and skipped the after party and go with her to dinner. But then Felicia sees him and goes, "Oh, you can take me to the after party." He's like, and she just takes off. He's like, "But I'm supposed to go with Mary Jane." Interesting. But it doesn't matter because Kraven shows up because he can smell Spider-Man. And so Peter has to duck out, pissing both of them off. We never got a conclusion to that, by the way. Not at least in this episode. And comes back as Spider-Man to fight him. Where they end up fighting on a roof. Again, this time. A ledge, basically. This time. And he says, Kraven's about to fall. He goes, "You kill me and your friend will be gone too." And and he's like, "What friend?" And he pulls out Robbie's driver's license. Right? "If you want to see him, bring Mariah to me." So he tries to track down Dr. Crawford, but can't find her, even though this scene doesn't make any sense. Also, eggs. Yeah, after this scene, eggs. And then he tries to track down more eggs. Track down Mariah Crawford. There's a scene that doesn't make any sense to me. She runs in to get on the bus, and he swings by just as she gets on the bus. How does he not see her? It makes no sense. He would definitely have seen her get on the bus. But no, she's synthesizing this drug, turns it red, and she feeds it to a rat that has the thing. So she's able to inject this rat with the same serum. If the only sample of the serum was given to Sergei, how was she able to make... Cause for antidotes, you need the serum to create an antidote. You know, it's the same thing with our vaccines. You need a sample of the disease to synthesize an antidote, a vaccine. Where did she get the... Did she have some of Sergei's blood? I don't know. It's never explained. It's not explained at all. No. So he can't find Mariah, even though Sergei says Mariah will know what I am. He just sort of sees a African animal exhibit at the zoo and is like, "Oh, that's where he is." Who wrote that? That's just stupid. No, that's where he is. He's got Robbie hung from a waterfall. Where is it hanging from? A roof. I assume there's a roof in there, I guess, but it just looks weird. He's just hanging above the water dingling there by the waterfall. And we find out later that there are crocodiles or alligators in there, but they don't come out till after Robbie lands in the water, which is not how it would work. You're basically dangling lunch above them. They would be underneath that. You seen Indiana Jones, right? All those gators underneath? Yeah, they'd be dangling underneath, ready for him to drop. They would not wait till he falls in the water. Anyway, he shows up. He asks where Mariah is. I don't know. They have a fight. Spider-Man fights a rhino. That's not realistic. When would Spider-Man ever fight a rhino? That's just stupid. The booby traps. Mariah does show up, but activates a booby trap that sends her into the lion's enclosure. So Sergei has to go fight the lions, and that also triggers Robbie to drop from the waterfall into the water, and he's not hurt. He's just fine, and also doesn't drown despite not having use of his arms. He should go face first in the water and drown. Here comes the alligators or crocs, whatever. Spider-Man comes in and saves him, and he's very confused. But the weird line delivery here when he takes the gag off of him, he goes, "Spider-Man!" Why would he say that now? You would already know. No. He grabs Robbie and he swings into the lion enclosure where Sergei's been attacked. Mariah's there. And Mariah, Spider-Man uses breaks up a part of a door and uses it to push the lines back into the enclosure and web it to the wall. We find out later, season 3, 2, 3, whatever, that the same episode we find out his origins, that the webbing only lasts a few hours, so eventually that's going to wear off and the lions can just roam free in there again. I hope he told someone in charge of the structure, hey, you need to figure out a way to enclose those lions because my webbing is going to wear off in a few hours. But no. Also, I have to nerf Spider-Man a little bit because he's like, oh, you're a faulty web shooter. The fall must have done something. What fall? You shot it off and then you fell. Something with the rhino? I don't know. And then yeah. But anyway, she gives Sergei the serum, the antidote, but she makes him drink it. The other stuff, you just pour it on her chest. She just poured on his chest. Now pour on her chest. That's another movie. No, pour it on his chest. Here, she makes him drink it. But my problem said that he's wounded. How does that heal him? It's supposed to reverse the serum that made him animalistic to begin with, right? So how does that heal him from the wounds? But he's just back to normal. Yeah, and we see them on a boat. But by the way, I like how Spider-Man turns to Robin and he goes, "Penny for your thoughts?" And he goes, "What is going on here?" He has no idea. How did I get roped into this? I'm afraid that's my fault. My fault, my friend. Yeah. But we see them smooching on a boat as they light off. And, yeah, Spider-Man is now ranting about how his love life is in shambles because of both Felicia and Mary Jane won't want to talk to him. I think you're better off, to be honest. Like, think about it. You got two women going for you. While it's a man's dream, it's also a man's nightmare when you got to choose between them. And you're like, because you choose one, and that person's going to love you. You choose the other. But if you don't, but then the other person's going to hate you. Same thing if you choose the other one. One's going to love you, the other one's going to hate you, and you're going to have, yeah. And there's an example of that later on in the series between Peter and Harry Osborn. And Mary Jane is the catalyst of that. We'll get to that. But, yeah. But yeah, I do like how he's like, never again will I get in the middle of a lover's spat. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. And then it just goes to the credits. I love that. That's great. Yes, Kraven the Hunter. This is the origin I wanted to see. Not some voodoo cocktail handed down generations. I don't know. I understand that character's from the comics. I don't know if Mariah Crawford is from the comics or not, or if she's the original character for this. But again, I would like, if I was in charge, I would like to integrate some stuff from the series. Terry Lee, Mariah Crawford, that sort of stuff. Kind of integrate them. Use original things. Use these original characters. Like Harley Quinn. Wouldn't have gotten anywhere. They just used her in this and said, she was fine here. Right? Used her in the cartoon and said, that's fine. No, add more characters. Again, I don't know if they're from the comics or not, but yeah. And it being a serum created by a scientist makes sense. Not some voodoo thing handed down from woman to woman. I don't know. And it in the movie it really only heightens his powers, makes him stronger, faster, more agile. It doesn't really mess with his head like this one does. But also, we'll find here that in the cartoon that just because the serum cured him, I think it just cured the psychosis thing in his brain, because I think he's still got the strength and the stuff later. I think. Yeah. Kraven's a good one. He's he's one of my favorites. He's an anti-hero, I think. I also want to point out in the opening, they also show the Punisher, who hasn't shown up yet, but this is the season 2 opening. Post season 2 and past. Yeah. But yeah, this is a pretty good episode, but it pales in comparison to our next one. Or 3. That's right, we got a biggie. Because we're finally going to cover the Alien Costume Saga. This is a 3-parter, which means I'll be covering all 3 parts together. Now, I was looking at the future seasons. They are clever in naming things. They don't often say part 1 and part 2 in future installments because they have a title above it. Like, say, Neogenic Nightmare in Chapter 1, this, and this. I'm not going to spoil it for you. So, often, there'll be 2-parters, but it's something like The Mutant Agenda, and then... No, what's a good one? I'm trying to think. It'll be like... Return of the Green Goblin, Goblin War, or... No, that's not even right. I don't remember. But there'll be 2 parts, but have different names. So it's like Doctor Who, where they have different names. I cover them as separate episodes, but they have the same name. Cover them together. So, and when we get to the 6 Forgotten Warriors arc, I'm covering that all as one, even though each of them had separate names. I think it's just easier for me to cover them all at once. Same things with Secret Wars and Spider Wars. Minor spoiler alert. I'm not going too far into that, but if you don't know by now, then you're never gonna know me. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this episode? No comments, so much like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Sky, and I'll see you in the next one.